My name is Keith Little. I'm a Navajo code talker, and I live in Crystal, New Mexico. But originally I was raised in western part of the Navajo Nation in Arizona. I have a family in Crystal, New Mexico, so that keeps me grounded there. Also that I served in the Marine Corps from May 1943 to November 27, 1945. And today I'm going to mention, we talk about the Navajo code talkers a lot. A lot of people ask, who are the Navajo code talkers? What did they do and where did they come from? So the origination of the Navajo code talkers and why they were originated is something I'm going to talk about today. And immediately after December the 7th, 1941, the Japanese were very successful in capturing and occupying a lot of land in Southeast Asia and some into China. Of course, we know they invaded Philippines and they landed on Wake Island and Guam. So by the first month of the war, and they were everywhere in the Southeast Asia and the South Pacific. And by April 1942, they occupied a lot of Southeast Asia. A lot of our garrison and Philippines were captured and became prisoner of war. And quite a few Navajo boys were in that garrison in Philippines. They were the first one to be drafted into the, I guess they were, a lot of them were members of New Mexico National Guard. So they wound up in the Philippines with 200 Coast Artillery. And some of those were my friends, they're older friends, but I associated with them a lot. And when I first saw them in Army uniform, they looked pretty sharp. And they looked good, so I wanted to enlist in the Army also. But I was really young at the time. In 1941, I was only 15 years old. And in 1942, I was 16 years old. But I was not aware of United States Marine Corps prior to 1942, the middle of 1942. And the story goes back to about the Navajo code talkers. How did they get into the war? And it starts with a fellow named Philip Johnston, that he lived in Los Angeles, a civil engineer. And he was also his parents. He lived on the Navajo reservation. He had a missionary parent, so he was raised with the Navajo playmates. And he knew how to talk Navajo, like we say, white man's Navajo, heavy accent. So anyway, he knew about the Navajos, how complex their language is. It's hard to learn for a non-Navajo to learn. So he and a bunch of Navajos were working in Los Angeles in defense jobs. He gathered a few of them up and run down to San Diego and come before a communication commander and showed them how the Navajo language could be used as a code. And the reason for that, one of the reasons is that some of American Indian Army had been used in World War I, and he knew about it. Being associated with the Navajo, of course, that became very interested with him. So he recommended that way. He demonstrated how it's going to work, how it should work, and convinced the Marine Corps commanders to at least try out. So the Marine Corps from San Diego sent the Marine recruiters to Navajo land. And there they set up their recruiting station somewhere around Window Rock and Fort Defiance, and visited schools around Fort Wingate, Ship Rock, and some of the schools on the reservation. But I don't know why they did not come to the school that I was attending. I would have been very interesting, but that's one of the reasons that I had not heard of the United States Marine Corps up to that time. Now, this was in March 1940. It was happening. So when they were signing up Navajo men for a potential communication specialists, they call them communication specialist. The term Navajo code talker had not been determined yet. So they went and it is said that they recruited, or that over 600 men signed up. Well, I don't know how many days they were on the reservation, but according to the stories that I read, that they had over 600 people up. Some of them even come to the recruiting station carrying their 22 rifles. So that is the beginning. And so the requests, the Marine Corps themselves, they wanted 200. And that's the way the request was made to the commandant. And they, when they received the authorization back, they told them they only get 30 for a trial project. So meanwhile, the 30, some of the potential communication specialists were already selected. So the 30 was picked out. On departure day, only 29 showed up. One didn't show up. So they sent them to San Diego recruit depot. They went through boot camp with flying colors because they were physically fit, and they were an unusual platoon, the first platoon to ever Native American, in particular Navajos. They were made up one platoon. I think it's 382nd platoon during that time. When they finished their boot camp, they were shipped on up to Camp Elliott. There, they were given a workroom, a classroom. They said that the building had steel barred windows. I don't know if that's true or not, but that is the way the story goes. And there they were given a pamphlet of military words, like this guy has. All the words that are used in battlefield. In other words, battlefield language. And names of all the weapons that are used, and the names of the units, and even the names of the countries around the world. Now, they were told to give it a Navajo word to each one of these words, but they went a little further. So, and devised a code so that it is a Navajo code, not a regular Navajo language. Just a code like they give terms to the weapons that are used, like a machine gun, something like that, you know, fast shooting gun. And then such terms as airplanes. A fighter plane is a hummingbird, Tahiti, and then grenades as potatoes, eggs as bombs, all in Navajo. So when you're sending a message in simple supplies, if the grenade is included, they will be potatoes. So that devised these in such a way that it will be confusing to anyone that would try to break it. So that's the way the first, also the alphabet. The ordinary alphabet has 26 letters, but they come up with 46, I think it is. And some of the most commonly used were assigned 3 code words. Like the letter A, it has 3 words that indicates able, the letter A, such as apple, in Navajo term for apple, ants, and X, Belasana, Willachi, and Tseneth. These were Navajo coded words for the letter A. So when you're spelling a letter, you don't repeat A the second time. You use another letter. So that is the way it is. Or in spelling out a word in Navajo, if there is 2 letters, like an E following each other. Now the letter E was had 3 also. Ear, I, and L. So when you're spelling a word out, you say when two letters follow each other, you say aja, atke, ash, like that. An ear following each other. This is the way it would turn out if you write it down the way it's said. But it is that for a letter E, like kip, you'll say tliza ajalke as besot is pig. So that's the way that's the way that the word was created. So it's rather very much confusing if you write the letter down. But anyway, that is how the first 29 Marines that were recruited on the Navajo reservation created the code. Very devised in such a way that it is schemed to fool somebody, the enemy. And the reason it was done is that the Japanese had also broken our American code. And the United States, I guess, were trying to come up with some form of communication where they can send messages freely without interference, and Navajo code became that, replaced that original, the codes, the natural codes that were used by the military. So while they were, when it was all done, that's how the Navajo code was created, Navajo code talkers. So the first group were sent to South Pacific.
And can I pick it up from here? Because that's an excellent overview of how the code came about. And there are some things that I learned here that, first of all, there were Navajos who were captured by the Japanese in the Philippines. So the Japanese had access to the Navajo language, which is an unwritten language. So what these 29 folks had to do is they had to create a code within the language so that it couldn't even be deciphered by Navajos. So that was a very clever accomplishment. And then, as you mentioned, your folks are put out into the field of battle. Now, what I'd like to do is give Sam Smith and Sam Billison an opportunity. First of all, I got to ask the question, and you answered it really, why to join the Marine Corps? Could you talk a little bit about what motivated you to join the Marines? And then could you talk a little bit about that training you had up at Camp Elliott and going into the field? So.
Yate. Everybody say Yate. You just broke the code. The way enlisted in the Marine Corps was that in 1943 I was in high school, and they had captions in the Albuquerque Journal and the radio KOB. They always have a short sentence there: the few, the brave, the Marines. And I always wanted to be one of those when I was in high school. And then to make it worse, John Wayne was making some Marine pictures. It really made me want to go there. So I enlisted while I was in, it was in April in the senior year. And the recruiter told me to wait, finish your high school, get your diploma, and then we'll come and get you. Sure enough, on graduation day, I looked over there were two Marines sitting over there in their Marine blues. So I knew they were waiting for me. There were three of us. Samuel Smith was one of them, and then the other guy was Virgil Kirk. He didn't join the Code Talkers. He went with the Air Force, I think. And anyway, they took us to the Santa Fe. We passed the physical, and they shipped me to San Diego right away. I don't know what they did with these other two. And I got in the boot camp, went through there like all the Marines, and I really enjoyed the boot camp because I was physically in shape, because I had played football, basketball, baseball, and track. And a lot of guys were falling down because in May, latter part of May, it was very hot in San Diego. Marching was full pack and running, and some guys were just falling over. But I really enjoyed all that obstacle courses, and a lot of boys thought I was crazy. But I really enjoyed the boot camp, and after that, there was an officer. He asked me, "Hey, Chief, are you an Indian?" I said, "No, sir, I'm a Navajo." So he said, "Oh, good." He says, "Do you speak Navajo?" "Yes, sir." "Do you understand Navajo?" "Yes, sir." And there's this other guy was with me in the platoon, also a Navajo. He was standing right beside me. The officer said, "How about you, Chief?" He says, "Me too." So the officer said, "Get your sea bag, throw it in the Jeep, I'll take it to Oceanside." So, gee, what's he going to do with us at Oceanside? I didn't know that was the name of a town. So in Oceanside, there's a big brand new camp, Marine camp, great big barracks, and we drove in front of one of the barracks, and there's all these young Navajos studying. I guess they were studying code. And I thought, gee, I just came from the reservation. I don't want to be with these Navajos. I want to be with the Marines. So we stopped there and we registered and we started studying the code. The code was very difficult because it was coded. It was Navajo language, but it was coded. So, but after you learn it, it was easy. A lot of Navajos didn't pass that code. A lot of them had to take it over 2 or 3 times to qualify. And out of all those Navajos that come in every year, every summer, only 421 qualified to be code talkers. And that's how many we had during the war. And so it was easy after you learn it because it just came in 3 areas, 3 phases. Anything that flew were named after different types of birds. Anything on the ground were named after those things that are on the ground, like weapons and machines and personnel and all this. And anything that float or submerged were named after fish. So it was just in 3 areas. When the code is coming over, if they say city, which is bird, you know it's some kind of an airplane. And if they say something on the ground, like he mentioned a Yanji, I think a Yanji was bomb. And if he says fish or show, that's some kind of a ship. So you notice right away what area that code belongs. So, but during the process of teaching while we're learning, it was top secret. You couldn't take notes. There was nothing in writing. Everything was verbal. You just put it in your head and try to keep it there. And then, you can't go outside and talk about it. Everything stays in here. You can't go to Los Angeles, have a couple of beers and tell your girlfriend, hey, there's a code, you know, it goes like this. You can't do that. So, and then during the war, it was top secret. Only 4 people knew about that code. The officer that sent the message and the officer that receives the message. And the code talk sends the message and the that receives the message. When they send the code, only those 2 Navajo code talks know about it. Once they send it, they don't talk about it. It's put away somewhere, and you don't gossip about it. And I guess you would give it if you talk about it. So once you send it, that's the end of it. So and then the requirements to join the Marines were, one was they ask you, do you know how to swim? One of them that you know how to swim. And the Navajo boy said, oh yeah, I know how to swim. When they get, there's no water on the reservation. And during the boot camp, there's a day that they call qualification. You qualify for rifle, qualify for obstacle courses, qualify for swimming, qualify to jump 35, 40 feet off the tower into the water with full pack and stay alive. And one day the swimming came up. They lined us up. There were this other boy and myself, this Navajo boy. His name was Robert Malone. So we lined up, blew the whistle, then a dog paddle all the way across. Halfway back, I went down. San Diego has a real big Olympic-sized pool where you have to qualify. You have to go across, come back, across, come back. I think it's 4 times. And I went down, and I got to the bottom, pushed myself up, and looked at the lifesaver, and he was looking the other way. I went down again, pushed myself up again. He's still looking the other way. The third time, same thing, still looking the other way. And I thought, gee. Fourth time, I barely came back up. He looked at me and he says, "What's the matter, Chief?" I said, "Help." By that time, my arms were limp, my legs were limp. I couldn't float. I was just standing straight up like this. And he jumped after me and pulled me out. And the next day, we had a big list. My name was on there. Casualty company, nonsense. I thought, gee, they're going to get me out of the Marines. And so for 2 weeks, they taught us how to swim, taught us the different strokes, and we qualified eventually. And then I didn't have to worry about it. But to make it worse, just about I was with the 5th Marine Division. They did away with what they call Carson Raiders. Carson Raiders were the top elite group in the South Pacific. And when they did away with that, they established what they call reconnaissance company. So they asked for volunteers, and about 5 or 6 of Navajo Code Talkers, we volunteered, not knowing what it was. We know what it was. It was $50 more in paycheck. And come to find out, you're supposed to know how to swim underwater. And here we go again. You didn't know how to swim underwater. So they had to take out, this time they had to take us out of the ocean. They get us a little ways in rubber boats, they dump us, and they say, "Swim underwater back to shore." Oh, I thought they'd get me out of the Marines yet, you know. But we qualified, and that swimming was really a problem with us. So, but this Navajo code, they used it on Guadalcanal. That's the first time the Marines landed, going back towards Tokyo. Guadalcanal is situated in the Solomon Islands, just a few miles from Australia. That's how far the Japanese have gone. They have taken all of Eastern Asia, Borneo, Philippines, and most of the Solomon Islands. So the Marines, the 1st and 2nd Marine Division landed on Guadalcanal, and then some islands in Salmon. They took all those, but on Guadalcanal they had a little problem. The Marines didn't know about the code, so they heard this over the radio, and they start complaining to the officers, "Hey, the Japanese are taking over our communication, and here is Navajo code." So the more complaints coming in, finally the general said, "Well, let's test these Indians. They're going to give us a problem." So they wrote a small message, combat message, and the United States Marines sent the message. When they send a message, when they receive it, it's still in code. So go to an officer to decipher it, go to an officer to see if it's today's code, to see if it's the correct code, then another one to see if it's coming from the right place to the right place. Almost 2 hours before it got to the general. So he says, "Let's try the Indians." When the Navajo sent the code, it's being deciphered as coming over the air. When the receiver gets it, it's in English. So he hands it to the general, 2.5 minutes. So General said, "Geez, I don't believe this. Write another one, let's try another one." Same thing happened. The American message, almost 2 hours. The Navajo code, 2.5 minutes. Well, General says, "Let's keep those damn Indians." And some of these Navajos are short, you know, and dark complected, black hair. Some of them have slant eyes a little bit. They were mistaken for Japanese, and they were thrown in the brick. And Navajos had to go over there and talk to them and bail them out. Hey, he's a Navajo. Get him out. We need him. So, but this code got so significant, so fast, so correct, that by Iwo Jima, the main communication was Navajo code. Can you imagine that?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And that's a good place because I want to turn it over to Sam Smith because I have a question for him.
Okay.
And what we're going to do is talk about Iwo Jima with the three is in the next question.
One more point.
Oh, one more. Okay, go ahead.
Don't cut me off. Now I forgot what I was going to say.
Sorry about that.
Anyway, they caught a Navajo on Philippines, but fortunately, he was in the army. They took him to Tokyo. They took all his clothes off, put him out in the parade ground. His feet were frozen to the pavement. They kept drilling him. They said, "What does this message say?" And he'd tell them, "This is what it says. It's Navajo language, and this is what it says." And it didn't make any sense. So they keep after him. Finally they gave up on him. So they put him back in prison. Pretty soon the war was over. He came back to Tuba City. And when we saw him over there, he said, "I don't like Navajo code talkers. You put me in trouble." So, but there's a lot of, we found out that the Navajo language was the most powerful, the most sacred, the most beautiful language. And I'm sure that all the Native American languages are like that also. So we found out this was like that. And the Navajo code talkers, we accept, acknowledge, and respect all the military branches of the United States Armed Forces. God bless you. God bless America.
What I wanted to ask, one of the ironies here is that before the war there was an effort, I guess, to eliminate the Navajo language, or you're not supposed to talk Navajo in school and such. And here the Navajo language basically saves hundreds of lives during World War II. What I wanted to do is ask Samuel Smith a little bit about that, and then talk about how the code talkers were accepted amongst the Marines in the field. And then I'd like you to talk about Iwo Jima, and then we'll have the other two gents talk about their experiences at Iwo Jima, and talk about how the code worked actually in combat situations. So could you take it?
Thank you. Hello, fellow citizens. Before I went to war, I lied about my age too to get in the Marine Corps because I didn't like the way Pearl Harbor was attacked, sneak attack Sunday morning. And I'm an Arizonian. The USS Arizona was sunk over there, still underwater. Those two and some other things that made me angry, so I decided to get in and get even. And I was only 15 when that happened. So I worked on it. Before that, my grandparents and my parents got me in a condition to be a Marine. When I was born, they gave me a warrior's name, so I had to be a warrior. And I didn't know that would come about shortly, but that's what happened. I lied about my age, like he said. We went down to Albuquerque recruiting office, and I was in the 11th grade, and him and the judge were accepted, and I went back outside. I thought about it, felt bad about it, so I went back inside and I told the recruiter that I had made a mistake in my birth year. So I lowered it, and he said, "By golly, you're right." And so on my discharge paper, it says, inducted, discharged, enlisted, before I was sworn in. And that's the way it's written on my discharge paper. And I have to deal with 2 different birth years, my life today. I have a driver's license that is older. Then I have some other records that I have to deal with that are younger. So that's the way it is. I never got it straightened up. But I did the serve boot camp down San Diego, 13 weeks, crash course, how to kill. And when I was going down there, I told my mother I got drafted. And she said, "Well, we can't do nothing about it, son, go." So my grandpa came one night to do some blessing on me to go serve in combat. I knew there was killing. I knew I was going to get killed or something, but it didn't matter. What I'm going to do was important. And he went and touched my arm. He said, "Grandson, you're still a pup," he said. "And you haven't caught a coyote pup yet." And I said, "That's all right, Grandpa, I'll get some on the way." And I didn't know what he meant, but you know, catching a coyote pup is, in your term, talking to your son about birds and bees. That's what it was. And I was going to catch some on the way. And so I went. I finished 13 weeks, earned some of the things that I'm wearing now. And at the end of the graduation, they gave us an aptitude test to be what we want to be in the Marine Corps. I wanted to fly because I wanted to get even with those sneak attackers. So I chose air wing. I wanted to be a pilot. I passed the aptitude test, but they came back and told me I don't have a diploma. And they're right. I had just finished 11th grade. So my next choice was artillery, because that one will do a lot of damage, and I wanted to do that. By that time, they found out I was a Navajo. I was different in color. So they came back and said, "Are you a Navajo?" I said, "Yes, sir." That's when they told me to go with them with my seed bag up to Oceanside, Camp Pendleton. And I never knew about the Navajo Code Talker School, but I found out that's where it was, to train to the communication. And we only did not learn just the Navajo Code. We also took other training in case we had to learn the Morse code, blinker, panels, semaphore, and our own code. That's what we had to learn and memorize. So that happened in about 4 months or 3 months. They told us that they wanted to give us a test so we can get promoted to sergeant. And I did my best and made good grade. That only got me in the 4th Marine Division. No promotion. I was still PFC when I left. So I was placed with the general. I think his name was Smith or Schmidt, that was in charge of 4th Marine Division at that time. Later, Clifton B. Cates took over. And I thought I had it made being next to the general, back behind the lines. Nope, I was wrong. When I was with the general in the combat, every once in a while a group would come by and they would want some volunteers. And I'm always at the end of their finger. And that's how I had some of the terrible experiences in the combat. The first combat we had was Marshall Islands, Kwajalein. Roy No More spent about a week there and came back to Maui, second biggest island in Honolulu group. That's where we practiced with kill in action, wounded in action. And all the Navajo code talkers were brought up from regiments and battalions to the division headquarters where we could study our Navajo code. And if we had any problem in combat, that was where we made the correction or make it so that it can be faster. And so on like that, after we finished with that one, when we're ready to go into combat, all these Navajo code talkers were put back down to their respective positions down the regiments, battalion, and companies, all the way up to front echelon. They were kind of put around like I was, to wherever they would be needed, wherever the Navajo code would be needed. That's how the Marine Corps operate the Navajo code talkers. So we hit Saipan. I don't remember the dates, but we were there about 3 weeks, I think. We lost one code talker, and we rest there about a week, regroup, and go down south to Tinian, which when we took care of it right away because the Japanese were doing a banzai attack, and all we did was pick them up. And after that, we went back to Maui and practiced with the replacements. Replacements were always waiting, or they're always over there waiting for us. And we get down to business right away to do the maneuvers, skirmishes, and again, all the Navajo code talkers come up to the division headquarters to train, practice again on the codes. And usually we had problems, so we correct those and so we can use it. At that time, myself and my assistant were flown over to Pearl Harbor. And there I found other instructors from other Marine Corps divisions that were brought from other islands. And they had same problem we had. So we put all the books together, made it one book, and took it back to our division to learn that one and get ready here it was Iwo Jima. That's where the night before attack, at the briefing, they said we would take the island in 1 week. And it took us 1 week to get off the beach. So that's how we worked. And on that island, we found out that there was too many leaves under the land. I don't know how many on top of each other. The flamethrower tank went in and burned them out and covered those caves. But 1 or 2 days later, they would dig themselves out and we would be attacked from behind. That's how it took so long to get that island secured. We were there about 30 some days. And before we finished getting the whole island, a flying fortress coming back from Japan landed there. There was two airfields. One of those big ones landed there. That was the purpose of getting that island, so that there was the bombing planes coming back, run short of gas, that's where they were to land. So that was the reason for getting that island back, and it cost too much, a lot, to get it back. And somewhere during my battle on the island somewhere, or maybe some other Marine division somewhere, I had an older brother that was in the Army Air Force, and he was shot down over Philippines, and he became a prisoner. And he told me after the code was declassified in 1968, after that he approached me and told me what happened to him, that the Japanese took him to a radio room and put a wire around his head with a tourniquet, keep twisting till he passed out. And he was copying everything we said, the messages that we said. He said he couldn't put it together to make sense. He did copy everything we said, but it's just the trick that we tried to explain. The trick was so unique that it's hard to explain. It would take a long time to really explain it right. But we are very proud to have tricked them and to have done what we did to shorten the war, save a lot of lives, and
Annette Roger. Yeah.
Wait, I'm not through yet. To my left is Dr. Samuel Billison. To my right is Mr. Keith Little. He's the treasurer, and he's the president of the association, and I keep them there.